I think that while I'm not I would consider a very like physical actor, I'm much more like, I think of myself more like an inside out intellectual type. There are certain things that you don't get to have the luxury of, like being in costume. One of my favorite lines of Horatio's is that Horatio, a piece of him, it's so interesting. He's sort of like the everyman of the play. We talk about like Shakespeare characters always tell the truth. I think Horatio always tells the truth in a very different way. There's a difference between always telling the truth and always being honest. And I think that Horatio is sort of always honest. Though they may have a rocky relationship throughout. Towards the end, Hamlet's actual honesty with Horatio even sort of convinces Horatio that, okay, yeah, I am on his side. I'm staying here. Hamlet's his little tiny monologue about the flute, though you fret me, you cannot play upon me, is just such a powerful metaphor, and it's such a like a badass moment. It's so cool. I mean, I'd have to say Adam. I think that his take on Hamlet is just such a breath of fresh air. There were times where I would be reading along with Adam, and I'd be like, oh, that's new. That's interesting. I've never thought of that before. We got into like conspiracy theory mode about whether or not why Horatio was there in Elsinore in the first place. It's great that we don't know it, I think, but it would have been really interesting to also see that in print. The ease of access, it's an entirely different experience than going out and seeing a play. Like you could even like listen to it like, off to the side while you're sitting doing something else. And I think that is really going to attract a lot of people to this sort of thing.
The intense scene between Hamlet and Queen Gertrude in her closet. There's this very intense interaction that a lot of emotions are happening at once. And there's a point that she seen like the darkness within her soul, like that she can't escape. I never thought that it would be in Hamlet because I know that I'm not an Ophelia type, and I am past the age of Ophelia now, and I feel like I'm a bit too young to play Queen Gertrude on stage. So I was so grateful to have the opportunity to act in this show that I didn't think that I would ever have the opportunity to, and it's kind of I would say like it's a dream come true to be able to bring a piece of the bard's work to life, like anytime Polonius talks. And I love specifically our Polonius. I've never had such a reaction to a Polonius before. He brings out every bit of like humor and like pompousness that you can possibly squeeze out of that character. And immediately David, who plays Claudius, I could swear that I've heard him on audiobooks, or just his voice is just so rich, and the words feel that like they come so easily to him, and he just embodied it. I can't imagine someone who loved Hamlet coming to this show and being disappointed.
He's driven a lot by his duty to this role that he has been groomed for, as well as the affection that he does hold for both his father and his sister. The only scene of the play where all three of them are together, there's a lot of just fun and playfulness and affection in that scene. They're clowning on their dad being as long-winded as he is, but it's in a playful way. That's one of the reasons why I find it so understandable that he's willing to just drop everything, leave what he's doing in France entirely, and rush right back to Denmark. What's interesting to me is he comes in and he seems like he doesn't know where his dad is. He just knows that something has happened to him. It has more of an intimate feel. On stage, you're playing to the back of the house, and you're being big and making sure that everything that you do and say is visible to everybody. But with this particular medium, it's you and your microphone and whatever soundproofing you have done. He is very much an up there emotionally character. A lot of the characters I played in the past had been like very much more like cerebral kind of characters. They were thinkers more so than they were doers, but where Laertes, he's all action all the time. Come in basically into every scene that Laertes is in, at like a 7 and then build up to a 10 as the scene goes on. But I'll have my revenge. Chewing that particular line around and thinking about it in terms of the circumstance, that's probably my favorite line that Laertes has.
But I think we all thought that not having the physical movements, because that is so much of Shakespeare's comedy, especially hiding in the dramas. When there are comedy moments, it's almost all physical. So how do we get that, especially our Rosencrantz and Guildenstern bits? Like, you can see it in your head where they look like Keystone Cops or doing something really stupid, and we have to sort of make that up with our voices. Okay, so my own is still the English ambassador's line where that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. But I also really loved, particularly everything that Adam was doing with Hamlet's speeches. And it was interesting when he said to us in the middle of one of the rehearsals that he'd never read or seen Hamlet before he had been cast. I think that's really cool because he was delivering some of the soliloquies in ways I had never heard anybody say that made perfect sense. Because I think a lot of people do the same intonation, the same, oh my gosh, we're all just going to be Sean Connery or Patrick Stewart doing Hamlet. Or I mean, it felt like everybody was just enjoying themselves, which is not always the case in theater.
An audience might be thinking about how human and close to our everyday experience this story feels, maybe unusually so. There's no trappings, no costumes, no connotations of other times. It's just you're just listening to human beings go through some stuff, and it's not unrecognizable stuff. It's recognizable stuff. Radio knows this. Radio's been doing this for a long time. Accessing the audience's ability to create, so it becomes a joint creation. We're doing our job, but they're adding the imagery. They're adding the associations. The other pieces of script that I really enjoyed digging into were the places where Claudius has figured out what character he's supposed to be playing. That's just fun. I've been a Hamlet fan for forever, but I came away with a new appreciation for just how friggin' good a playwright Shakespeare was. Technically, just the putting these words in this order in the mouths of these people and then setting them on each other. The finished production, in my mind's ear, really values the words, values the interplay, the subtlety, the nuance.
Anytime you're coming into, let's say a part that doesn't have as many lines or as much of an effect in the overall scheme of things, you always try to make the play as selflessly as possible about yourself. And so for me, it was trying to, okay, I've got 4 lines in this scene, 5 lines in this scene. How am I going to make the most out of these moments and kind of find my way into the important pieces of this role? On stage or on camera, we have to deliver those lines with some kind of impending doom, which I always love the soothsayers because they're the ones that put the tension, I think, in a lot of the movies. And so many actors just brought little things that I hadn't really considered, just like listening to Claudius and Laertes and Hamlet. And just the actors found such a way to maximize the little through lines and link lines that you don't always catch in Shakespeare until you really understand the text. I love all of the different layers of Hamlet. There's something beautiful about the betrayal and the tragedy. So there's such an intelligence to Hamlet's character. So many moments in those monologues where it's, here's an average person living an average life or even a charmed life. Something happens and all of a sudden the world's turned upside down and now you're seeing all these ranting and ravings and going mad, crazy by the circumstances, and that's beautiful.
Those moments when you're so frustrated or so angry or so happy that you go to say something but the words escape you because you can't just articulate what that feeling is properly. Hamlet articulates those feelings. So when people are sitting there and they're watching Hamlet, they feel something like, yes, that's what I've always been trying to say about that feeling. I had read Hamlet, but I've never seen or heard any version. So I was really just building a foundation based on what was in the text. And here's the thing, everybody. Hamlet's constantly in action, and I don't see how anybody can possibly disagree with that. I think this is indicative of our society, that we take moments of quiet when things aren't happening. We take that as an inact. And I think that's where this misperception of Hamlet occurs. During these soliloquies and semi-soliloquies and stuff like that, he's thinking. But you have to understand, they may go on for almost 2 pages of text, some of them, which is wild. But it's a moment in time. Yeah, so 7 to 10 days, his dad is dead. He sees a ghost, y'all. He listens to a ghost, he puts a plan into motion, and he executes the plan. I don't know what you want from him. In 7 days in Elsinore, he goes from like seeing a ghost and the ghost telling him, hey, your uncle killed me, to killing his uncle. She portrays Ophelia in such like a delicate and tender and strong but hurt way. She was just brilliant, really. My favorite scene is the Alas, Poor Yorick. For some reason, right from the first time that I read that, there was something about it that just clicked. It kind of encompasses everything. It's reflective and joyful and sad, and it captures this wide range of emotions and asks these big questions. It's the perfect encapsulation of how most people strive to think about death. He reflects positively on it, but he also thinks, and now they're dead. They're gone. And he has a moment where he's like, where are these things now? People associate Hamlet as being morose or sad or like, and does he feel as yes? But we all do. Everybody has those thoughts. Every single person that walks. If you haven't yet, you will. But that doesn't mean you don't have a zest for life. The one moment that I ended up growing to adore as the process went on, Hamlet, he talks a lot about sleep to dream. And he explores this concept early in the play of sleeping and what that means and what does it mean to have this eternal rest. The last scene in Hamlet's death, the way it started unfolding for me in a very natural way, was the end. Hamlet finally going to rest and going to sleep. So the rest is silence really resonated with me in a lot of ways. Cam was so natural with everything. I feel like anytime he's interacting with somebody else, not a soliloquy, he's performing except with Horatio. And Cam made that so easy. The tenderness and understanding that he approached the role with was just spectacular. People come to see Hamlet to hear Hamlet talk to them. And I think it extends beyond that. I think there's to hear anybody talk to you. I think right now in the world of podcasts and how popular podcasts are, if you're the type of person that just likes getting lost in a world, getting lost into something as you're driving or putting your phones in or just sitting down for a quiet evening at home with a tea or a scotch in your hand, I think this is going to be something that you just can't miss. You need to just put it on and just get lost in the world and let these wonderful characters of Elsinore have a conversation that you get to listen to through the wall.